And do we have audio? Eric and John, do we have audio yet?
Not yet.
Not live on Facebook yet.
All right. If you do hear me out there, 1 minute, stand by. We'll be with you We'll be with you shortly.
We'll be here in a minute.
All right. And John, do you have audio? Great. Okay. All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Kate, and you are joining us live in Merlin, Oregon. Of course, I'm sitting here with Guy, and we have a whole room full of people as well. People who have come here for our volunteer weekend. We had a work party this morning to clean up the grounds and a nice lunch, and now we're going to settle in for our post-lunch discussion with Guy. So glad you could join us, and as always, for all of you out there watching on YouTube and Facebook, if you have any issues during the stream, just go ahead and send a note in the question or comment area, and one of us behind the scenes will help you, or if you have any questions that you want me to come up here and read for you, I will do that as well. So, of course, for everyone in the room, there's an open invitation to come up anytime you wish. No need to raise your hand, just come on up and just be mindful of all the cords everywhere. And I think we're ready to get started. Do you have anything to open with, or would you like me to ask you a question?
The deck of cards is in your hands.
Okay. 3 weeks from now, we have coming up our holiday banquet. And I have been intending to do sort of a little promotional video with you for the last couple of weeks, but we just haven't gotten to it. So I thought actually this might be a good opportunity for you to talk a little bit about the topic that we're going to be looking at that day, preparing to love and to be loved. And I know I've said to you that I personally would like to know more about what the intention is with this series of talks. Because it's like, on the one hand, as an aspirant, I can always feel that my heart wants to open up. I feel it, and yet I also just, on the other hand, feel like I'm so conditioned, Kate is so conditioned to be closed up and in self-protection mode. And so it's almost as though the title like scares me a little bit. It's like, you know, like this.
Atta girl.
I know, way to get it started, I know.
Welcome, everyone. That's it.
That's it. I think love is a topic that we know I'll speak personally, and I know so little about. I feel like I am so conditioned to think that what it means and what it means when you love something or someone. And this seems like I know that we're going to talk about it on a different level.
I intend to cover the topic in a host of different ways, a lot of different ways, over the actually I'll probably start talking about it maybe even the Sunday before the weekend, certainly the Wednesday before, and cover it. Do I speak Friday night? Friday and Saturday and Sunday.
Wednesday, Friday, Saturday twice.
Okay.
And Sunday. Yeah, it'll be 5 talks then.
I think one of the biggest problems, certainly that students face, but that in one respect I have to constantly measure, is that we already think we know what love is. And the proof of the idea that we have about love is that if somebody says something that doesn't fit what we think love is about, then we get all bent out of shape, failing to see that our resistance to a moment isn't the proof that we know better than the moment, but that it proves that not only are we outside of the moment, but we know nothing about love at all. As a hint, I guess, about the talks for you. We've all heard the expression that perfect love casts out fear. And I don't intend to cast aspersions on any other men and women who have reached a certain threshold in their work, because there are some great teachers past who have written eloquently about the topic, but again, I am not trying to separate myself out, but I'm always astounded to hear and read the teachers say something like, well, this is what love is. And if you're not like that, then you don't know what love is. And there's never any explanation as to where a person misses the mark. There's a mark that's described that you need to hit, and then there's all the failings to that mark, but there's no bridge in between the two. And that's what I intend to do with our talks in December, is bridge these things. Why does perfect love cast out fear? Because perfect love, to use words, is the moment in which the opposites are reconciled. And the reason that it casts out fear is because the moment that what I'm for as opposed to what I'm against, who I like as opposed to who I don't, what I hope for as opposed to what I fear, that all of these vacillations between the opposites that comprise the basic activity of human consciousness as it is, always trying to get someplace or get away from something, until a person understands you can't get away from yourself. You believe that you can because your mind imagines a time when you won't suffer or you won't have an enemy, or for some of you, where you won't have to listen to Guy speak anymore. You do not understand that the object of the mind doesn't exist without the subject that makes it, which means that the experience is always of oneself. But for us, love is about what we love and what we don't love. That which agrees with what we think is right, we love. That which we say is wrong and we resist is summarily wrong, and that's the end of the story. But it isn't until a person understands the reason that love casts out fear is because it removes you from the equation. That's why love casts out fear, because there's not a you anymore weighing and measuring and judging with your resentments and petty issues that you have with people, or for that matter, with the moment itself. Because this is a big thing. The mind that looks out and says, this person doesn't like me, and therefore I feel their enmity, and now I don't like them, caught in this wave of opposites, doesn't understand that when they look out and see a moment they say they wish wasn't happening, they're not looking at a moment they wish wasn't happening. They're looking at some idea they have about the moment and resisting their own creation and believing that proves they know what's better, and they don't. Love comes when the self ends, which is why it's so difficult for aspirants, why it's so terrifying. If the only way fear is ever going to come to an end is when I no longer believe in a time to come and I no longer regret my past. That's the only way that fear is going to come to an end. Because fear keeps fear alive by wanting a time will there be brave. And fear keeps the idea of hatred alive by setting itself against it as the knower of love. And fear doesn't exist without a divided mind. The divided mind creates time, inherent in time, myself apart from the world that I'm in and what I must do or get away from, creates that fear. And as long as that lives, there's no love. We want to be the ones that love. You'll know what love is when you're no longer wanting to be someone who loves. There will just be love because there'll just be this constant, beautiful, difficult, constantly reappearing point in your own consciousness where you understand the only decent thing is to be aware of what in you is trying to affirm what it believes is good by negating what it sees that isn't part of what it's assumed, and the collapse of it is a kind of great emptiness. And as difficult as it is to understand, it is that emptiness that draws the opposites together. And when those opposites meet, They negate each other. The negation of the self is the negation of the opposites. And that's where a person begins to understand something about what it means to love. But not until.
This is great because you said a bit ago, there's no object without a subject. And I see that that's what I get caught up in, is thinking, love is something that has an object. I mean, that it's an action that you take towards an object, but not knowing that that's generated by.
You won't know it until you understand that
Yeah.
the object of your resentment and
Yeah, yeah.
defensiveness is
Is-
inseparable from the Kate who believes that she knows better. They're one thing. It's a single operating
Yes,
system.
it's a self-love going on.
It's
you know,
all self-love.
like,
It's
yeah.
the essence of narcissism, but not understanding that resistance, for instance, is narcissism. Who would ever think that to not want something is a form of being a narcissist? Because what is it you don't want? It doesn't look like me, it doesn't sound like me, it doesn't talk like me, and therefore it can't be good. Because I am basically the center of all things loving and kind and good.
You looking at me?
Yeah, no, I'm looking past you at Paul. And then I changed my mind about that too. And then there was Chris, that was worse.
Go down.
I stopped down there at Charlie. Our problem is that when we have a reaction of some kind, by the nature of the fact that the reaction has come into me and become essentially my experience, I don't see yet that that reaction is inseparable from a part of me, of this consciousness that came into that moment with me as part of that consciousness. And it's already contrasting and comparing everything that it looks at to what it expects to see. And when it doesn't see what it wants to see, then for it, the mystery's over. It's just done. You are the reason for my misery. End of story. And so I have no mystery in my life at all. Our entire culture is predicated on the idea of knowing. And knowing is antithetical to love. Because in love, there's no one that knows anything. If you examine yourself, sitting here, whatever reaction you're having, it's so difficult not to identify with something that's just automatically there. It defines me. And a person can't imagine, love can understand it. A person is defiled by their own creation. But they believe they're being defiled by someone who's challenging the way that they think and see life to be. And all of that remains in this intellectual soup until a person gets so tired of thinking in the opposites. When you think, you are in the opposites. You can't think without a vacillation, a movement between the thinker and the thought. It's an endless movement, but that endless movement produces an endless sensation of self that's for or against whatever the content of that thought may be in the moment. So it's never sitting there in a mystery. It's always there solving what's wrong with others or what it needs to do to get away from whoever it is that's bothering them. So this, which I think now that we've gotten this far into it, tomorrow I think I'll go into this more deeply, this idea of object as separate from subject. It used to bother me in school endlessly. Like, don't bring up object and subject, okay? I mean, really, because, yeah, I'm just like,
Dangling modifiers.
well, yeah, you got, because I'm out there dangling with your modifiers. I don't, a subject, object, please. Because I always thought that what was out there was the subject,
Right,
and that
right.
I'm the main object of life. Which really tells you quite a bit. But if you can understand it, whatever the subject may be, meaning the person, the condition, the circumstance, what is its, how do I say, how does it create the experience you have without that subject being loaned its meaning, quality, and content by the subject? So the object is always the mirror reflection of the subject. But we don't think that object and subject are mirror images, but they are. They don't exist without each other.
And is it unchanging, the object in that moment? Like, is it a static creation of?
Oh no, the object changes according to the reaction of the subject.
Okay.
And that keeps the illusion alive. Because here I'm looking at, no, I'm not going to look at her. I'm not going to look at you.
You're running out of people.
Well, I'm going to look back at, no, I don't want to look at Deborah. Mita.
Wait.
Roger, no, I'm not looking at you. See, you think it's you that has the reaction. You don't have a reaction. You, the I, is what appears after the reaction has come into some form of fruition in order that I know why I'm having this reaction, the nature of the experience, and what to do about it. So I'm always on the cleanup crew.
Right.
And that's my life, an endless cleanup crew. Or the endless creator of things that are wondrous and beautiful until I have to clean up after you or myself because it didn't turn out like that.
Right.
And one day, see, this is it. What's the expression? Better a slave in heaven than a king in hell. One day you'll understand. It's better to be no one than to serve something that serves itself at the expense of your life. But until you actually understand, by seeing that, nothing can change. The minute that our attention, this is the problem with the English language. I guarantee you, in the old languages, there was an endless subtlety to the word I, ours, theirs, that had to do with whether the verb was behind it or in front of it, so that it was always defining time at the same moment that when you were talking. For us, our language is always in the passage of time. It's always from here to there. We have no language that allows us to understand that there might be for here. In other words, that something might anticipate this moment, not as an outcome, but actually creating the outcome.
Brings to it.
Exactly.
Right.
So that this instantaneous attention is really the manifestation, is really the effect of something that I didn't see and don't know is in this unconscious nature. Not mine, not yours, this unconscious nature. And that it will find what it needs in that moment relative to the possibilities in the conditions around it in order to produce a reaction. It seems like your attention has gone on something and then there's the reaction to it. The truth is there's the reaction and then you understand your attention was placed on something so that you could be the subsequent sense of self that appears to rescue you from something that's not even your life, that you didn't even produce. It just happened. It just happens. So we spend our lives trying to figure out how something that just happened should happen again or not happen when we had nothing to say with what happened there.
It's just an after effect.
It's just I as an after effect. But it never sees itself as an after effect because in this instance, I look out and I see somebody or I hear something or I watch the news and I have this, and I'm drawn to that. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. Why do you look at certain people? You ever notice that there are certain people that you look at and they tend to bring up in quotes a certain reaction in you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Well, why are you looking at them? Because it wants the continuity of itself.
But if it,
And by the way, just to add to this, love is not continuous. It never began and it never ends. It's not it doesn't start here and go there. It doesn't get better there and go over there. It is a continual field. That's why in the old work they would say a person is third force blind. That means they see as a result of looking at this or as the one who is looking. Always in the opposites, active or passive, passive or active, but never present to the fact that object and subject, active and passive, appear at the exact same time. And if they appear at the exact same time, then there's no one outside of that field at all to judge it or to try to figure out what to do with what they see. That third force, that which allows a person to see the opposites, we're blind. Because we're always in one opposite or another. So love is blind. I never put that together, but there it is. That's why love is blind, not because you put your hand in some idiot that you walked you into a pond someplace. Love is blind. That means it is not a derivative of self that sees or doesn't want to see.
it's a reconciler.
It is the endless reconciliation of the opposing forces that are ceaseless in their appearance in this time and place.
I think I'm seeing how you're talking about love in this sense. Then it is something else that is seeing this perfect reconciliation, this perfect balance, this perfect karma of like what is being brought to me
He
for
maketh
the purpose.
love maketh the sun to shine on good and evil alike.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find endless passages, east and west, that validate the idea, but it isn't until a person, and what's that aphorism? Blessed are those that have a soul, blessed are those that have none. Woe be it unto those who have an information. Because the path for the aspirant has to go through this, something they could, by the way, that they could never lead themselves to, because in order to arrive in a relationship with love, they have to be led away from themselves as a seeker to their suffering. You're not going to find a solution to your suffering, because the real solution to the suffering is love, and love is the revelation that it's not you suffering.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What else?
So it just does desire bring to itself then what strengthens it or reconciles it? Or is it both? Or did I miss the whole point?
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't know, did any of you turn in? I'm going to turn in. Did any of you tune in to the Insight Timer this morning?
Yes. Yeah.
What did I talk about?
Miracles.
I said that there is such thing as what we experience as a miracle, but then in truth, it's not really a miracle at all. It just belongs to the intercession of another order of consciousness into our own, so that for a moment we stand, as it might be, transported 1 foot into a higher bit of light that sees what we can't. And at the same time, we get to see that, boy, I can't believe that I was that blind. And you inescapably recognize by the advent of this intersection between levels, you see that there's clearly this level, and though I can't claim the other level, I know now there's another level, because by that higher level of understanding, by that light, I can see that what I used to call light isn't light at all. Right?
Yes.
So, look, I know sometimes this sounds complicated. You have no idea sometimes at home, I sit up, I have 30, 40 pages of notes based on what I want to come and talk to you about for 20 minutes. And I have to think to myself, like, well, throw that away, 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 because we don't You can't touch it yet. We don't believe that about ourselves. We don't believe that we're dense. We don't believe that our minds don't operate properly. We don't believe anything like that about ourselves.
I know, I believe it about myself. No, I understand what you're saying.
Because, again, as I described this morning with the story of the centurion, that's straight out of as above, so below, as within, so without. A constant reflection of the same truth. Centurion says, you don't have to do that, just say the word. And then out of the clear blue sky, Christ, who a moment before called everybody faithless idiots, said, I've never seen a faith like that before. Well, what faith is Christ talking about? He's talking about the fact that this centurion understands something about levels and scale.
Right.
And if it's true at the level he's at, then by God, it must be true at the level Christ's at. Mm-hmm. So we don't understand that desire is in levels and scale. For instance, you one day you'll understand desire is an attribute, a manifestation of gravity. And that there is always a center in our world, in our lives, that for us we are drawn to. So that we cannot separate the desire we have from something from the pull it has on us. But we believe it is we who want the thing that we are drawn to, when you cannot separate what is drawn from what is drawing it. That's at a level. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Well, what is the center of my gravity when I'm sitting here resenting someone? Where is the center of my gravity when I'm so interested in being entertaining that I just go to sleep entirely? What is the gravity of my values? What do I put first and foremost? Because it is always by the nature of a divided mind to create from the object that is itself an expression of this unconscious nature, it makes that object the center of gravity. Mm-hmm. Now, my whole life revolves around what you said. Mm-hmm. Doesn't it?
Yes.
My whole life revolves around this idea of what health is, what life is, what death is. My whole life revolves around a golf swing. Because in that moment, the gravity of this relationship that requires being sustained is so dynamic that I can't even begin to approximate the fact that right now, the whole of my life, everything I'm going to think about for the next 10 seconds or 25 years, all circulates around the center of a gravity that only exists because an unconscious mind divided creates a sun for itself, a planet for itself, and then goes round and round and round itself, believing that what it's going around is something outside of itself, when it's not outside of itself at all. And the collapse of that is love, because then there's no center anymore.
Right.
I'm coming at this from several different directions. That's it. I'm not giving the weekend talks now.
We'll change all of our promotional materials.
Yeah.
The next topic.
So you have to understand, you can't escape desire. That's one of the strangest things. The minute that you came into this world and took on a body, desire came with you. Just by the nature of whatever one's essence is, developed or not, it attracts to it through desire, or it is drawn to by desire to what it needs in order to finally be able to see in all three realms. You following me?
I am.
And you can't, you can't. How do I say this? Our mind is so divided that when it finally occurs to us that some of what I'm saying is true, then you want to wait in a hurry. Yeah, I recognize, you know what? It's a fool's errand. It is a fool's errand to try to resolve a reaction I've had. Fool's errand. It's not even my reaction, but I don't know that because in the moment of the object I'm reacting to, the subject is different than what it's reacting to, and therefore it has to do something, all hell's going to break loose. But if you actually one day actually understand, that object doesn't exist without the subject.
Yep.
My reaction doesn't exist without my approximation of how that should have been. So it is the awareness of that simultaneously that brings an end to the unconscious identification with the reaction. And then everything that follows the reaction, which is the building of another universe in which everything's going to finally rotate around and I'm going to finally be recognized for the royalty that I should be recognized as being.
So it's when that is seen, when desire at the one level of existing, having a gravitational pull towards it to strengthen itself, when that is seen from a different level of oneself, then it becomes, there's a chance of reconciliation for the purpose of.
Again, there is no temptation without desire, and there is no desire without the opposites. At the physical level, it's natural. But at a psychological, spiritual level, desire has no place in delivering a person into whatever the temptation promises them will get there or give them what they want.
Right.
So you begin, which is very difficult, because right now when I'm tempted to do something, there's a pleasure in it. Whether the pleasure is because I'm going to get something or the pleasure is I'm going to get something away from me. There's still pleasure in desire. So the work becomes a crucible when you start to understand that your desire to revisit, and this is a big thing for most of you, just endlessly revisiting. Your conversations are all about revisitation. Everything, which is what? Just the repetition of a certain sense of self as it relates to experience. Now, in the social world, that's part of your life. You want to sit and just schmooze it up with people, schmooze away. But at least for God's sake, know that you're acting out something, you're living a role and enjoying the role, because that's what you can actually learn to enjoy your personality instead of be punished by it when you make the slip up because you threw something into the conversation that wasn't true. Looking for approval. It's all just constantly like, how they seed clouds? This consciousness seeds itself all the time, hoping that something will rain down from it that'll be seen as clever. But then when it rains acid, acid rain, then it's not your fault. You're ashamed, and now the object has changed from being someone special. Now I'm someone special because I'm stupid. It doesn't care. Perfect love casts out fear. The words always miss the mark. But one of the reasons, for instance, of a school for a meeting like ours, in which for those of you who are capable, there's a nice atmosphere here. I'd like to, something in me wants to cling to that. Because the recognition for a moment of something that is superior to what I once thought was superiority itself makes everything in that world seem like a shadow. And there's no escaping the experience that you have to go through relative to the endless judgment of yourself and others. You can't escape it. Did you know that judging others is the way in which you escape the judge in yourself? That's what judging others is the way in which you escape the judge in yourself. That's why Christ said, judge not that you be not judged. Only here's this beautiful pithy statement, but who the hell understands it? You can begin to understand it and have the actual experience of recognizing that. that when I'm set against somebody, I'm not set against them. I'm set against the expression of their nature in this consciousness and doesn't want to experience itself. So it's not you I don't want to experience.
Right.
It's the relationship that is born out of these opposites meeting, where if I was present to it, I would realize it's not you, it's not me, just something brought together to produce this new Holy Spirit, this new awareness, this third force. Then everything takes on a different meaning.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to come up? Barbie? All right, great. And John and Eric, are there any questions on Facebook or YouTube?
No, not on YouTube.
No, okay.
Okay. Hello, I'm Barbie. I was thinking about something that you talked about Wednesday, which was an expression of BOTM, which is boss of the moment.
Bottom.
Bottom.
You've reached
I've
the bottom.
bottom. And I.
One second.
What?
You've reached the bottom when you think you're on top.
That's right. That's right. And I also thought, BOTM could be the beast of the moment. That's what I could really feel that. Because
Beast, boss, they're the same.
same idea.
Yeah.
The other night, I was before I fell asleep, I was lying there, and this boss of the moment, really wanted me to go with it down into its steps of resentment of things that had happened in the past.
New resentments or just a repetition of the old ones?
Well, it had something that had happened a long time ago, but that it was when something spurred it up in me, it came alive.
All right, so just stop there.
Okay.
So it is still the same resentment. It just seems to be new because something got stirred.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
So here's the object that I resent.
Okay.
And if I finally make peace with the object that I resent, I believe that now peace exists, when the fact is that the object that I resent doesn't exist without something that brings it with it everywhere it goes. It'd be like you having a pair of shoes that you hate more than any pair of shoes you've ever owned, because you look so good in them, but they hurt so much to put on.
Mm-hmm. And you keep putting them on.
And you just keep putting them on.
Mm-hmm.
And you buy shoe stretchers, you buy people to polish them up. You do everything you can to escape the fact that you keep putting on those shoes. Nobody comes and puts resentment in Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Not even, I won't say it.
No, but this is what I was lying there, and I could see that there was a part of me that was like, that really wanted to go with the resentment, and then there was another part that said, oh no, you shouldn't be that way. And it just kept going back and forth, and I could see that boss of the moment loved the fight, because the more that I don't want to do it, I do want to do it, it made it stronger and stronger. And that was the same night that you had talked about Jesus being on the mountaintop, and he said to the devil, get thee behind me, or get thee hence. And that's the only thing that I could even bring to this consciousness to, as an answer.
I get it,
you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I'm
I'm
yeah,
gonna help you.
Okay, good.
First of all, anybody ever been in Barbara's bed with her? Why'd you take it that way? No, you understand, don't you? Because you are working students. You understand that this resentment should have no place in my life. But sweet Jesus, I am drawn to it. There is a gravity to it, yes?
Yes.
And then I start to feel the pull of this gravity, and I go, God, I shouldn't be pulled into this gravity.
Right.
And so now the gravity that I don't want to be pulled into becomes a form of resistance. And then I vacillate between the thing I don't want to be and the me that I think I should be. Mm-hmm. When after a while, you'll see the futility of bouncing back and forth. And you'll understand that the real resolution to that moment isn't something that Barbara's going to come to. When Christ said, I am the light of this world, or I go before you to make the crooked places straight, what he is saying is that there is an intelligence that recognizes on the spot, in the very moment that vacillation is taking place, that that's exactly what's happening. And it comes to an end because you step out of it altogether. Not you not wanting it, not you wishing it wasn't there, not you trying to figure out how to solve it, but they understand that the attempt to solve it belongs to the self that created it.
Right.
The attempt to solve it begins to the self that created it. It's just a very tricky way of doing it, isn't it? Do you see it? Because don't you sit and struggle and you say, well, I should struggle. Yeah, you have to struggle. You have to struggle. And this is what the paradox of the work is. Why do I have to struggle? Because that's one kind of suffering, isn't it? Struggling like that, I'm suffering. At least I think I'm not suffering the resentment. I'm suffering resenting my resentment.
Judging.
Judging. So I get to the point where I realize that suffering is a dead end. And when I see it's a dead end, then suddenly the possibility of conscious suffering comes in, which is I cannot participate in any of this moment, in any movement whatsoever. Now, again, that happens when you see at the same time these opposites, and not until that. But your work is to, how to say this? A lot of you have had this experience. I hope all of you do, and more deeply so. You come to the work because you think you're headed in the right direction. And then you find out that's not the right direction, and I've run into a wall. Well, now my reaction says, well, that's the direction to go in. So now you go in another direction. And little by little, no matter what direction you take, the walls keep coming in. This is where the rubber meets the road, because at some point, the walls have to be seen as an expression of your own energetic conditioning, trying to escape the conditions it creates. You have to see that. And when the walls the walls came a-tumbling down. Now you have the horns that brought down the wall, the walls of Jericho. Because you can't escape the mind that doesn't want to be itself, that doesn't want the experience of itself. But when you see that that is not you, which requires, look, you can't, how do I say this? The process of negation is not through affirmation.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm always affirming I shouldn't be like this or I ought to be like that. The process of negation is in fact the end of a relationship to the opposites. Not this, not that, as it's said in the Eastern traditions. You can't bring that about, but you can certainly begin to see the need for that, and then bear what you have to bear quietly.
Right. And that kind of goes along with what you were saying today about another dimension, because then when you can see.
Yes. Yeah. Look, this consciousness can't see that it is object and subject simultaneously. But there's another level of consciousness that can see the opposites, that you and I live one side or the other all the time. That's another level of being.
Right. To see the futility of it, the total abject futility of it.
If I see the futility of it, where does it leave me? In the dark night of the soul.
Right.
The darkness representing, by the way, the end of the opposites. Because, and I'll go into this more tomorrow. Can there be an object without light?
No.
Can there?
No.
So that means that object and light are secretly opposites at a level. One doesn't exist without the other. When you understand that one doesn't exist without the other, you'll start to realize that this anger, this fear, this worry doesn't exist without the other, and the other isn't the one I'm blaming it for. The other is this part of myself that's divided up into this darkness that calls itself the light, and it's not the light at all. That's the paradox. Again, it creates the darkness by being the light. Doesn't it? But is it real light?
No, false light.
False light.
False light.
False light. False light. You do that tonight, okay? False light. False light. False light. False light.
Well, there was a Latin term for it. What was it, Ellie?
Ignis fatuus.
There you go. Something like that.
No, that's what it is.
Yeah.
False fire.
False light.
It was the name of an album I had when I was at, I swear to God, it was called Ignis. It was another great title of the, yeah. I've had so many great titles for my books and musical career. What do you want to call it, Guy? This is top with RCA and Neil Diamond. What do you want to call it? Let's call it Ignis Fatuus.
That will really sell.
And then we'll show me hanging on strings like a puppet. And it'll say Ignis Fatuus. Zip.
That's so shocking.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Guy.
Yeah, you bet.
Time to wrap up, unless you have something else.
No, I've said my piece.
All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. Of course, join us again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific for our usual Sunday class. It'll be broadcast right there on Facebook and YouTube per the normal. And then, as we talked about all throughout the start of the discussion today, our holiday banquet talks are coming up December 13th through the 15th. Do tune in. All of that will be live streamed for free in real time. You'll find information about that on our website under the events section, or you could just go to guyfinley.org/holiday, and that will tell you how you can come in person, how you can watch free online, and how you can get the replay package. So guyfinley.org/holiday. And as Guy talked about, he'll, I'm sure, be having a couple of talks even leading up to that banquet weekend that will all be on this topic. So thanks again, and we'll see you when we see you.